Power Appers, my name's Barry. I'm with Power Apps Academy, now also in partnership with powerappify.com. So welcome to our channel. In our video today, we're going to be looking at the new software or service request process. And we're going to be looking at this holistically, end to end. So we're going to cover off the full business process, and then we're going to show you where we use Power Apps to gather the information, assess the information, come up with a risk scoring, and then send that data on to be assessed by the particular committee that deals with that. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First of all, we're going to cover off some of the process, and then we're going to jump into the app demo itself, and I'll show you how that's all configured and how you can build that yourself. Don't forget, from powerappify.com you can download all these resources for free. That includes the process templates, the Power App templates, and all the supporting documentation. So head on over there and you can download it and start customizing this app within your business. Right, let's
share the screen. Now, before we hop into the demo of the app and how we've configured it itself, I just wanted to quickly cover off some of the documentation that is available when you download the app for use in your business from Power Appify. Let's start off here with the process diagram. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on here. You can download it and review this for yourself. All of this is available for you free when you download the app, free from Power Appify. But basically, here it is. We have a need is identified for the requester to understand the requirements of what they want, whether software or service, a cloud service, whether it's an application that needs to be installed, just understanding that whatever that service that is selected meets all the business requirements. We then have an application that they need to fill in, and this is where our Power Apps comes in, to make sure that we as IT or whatever function assesses that, collects all the relevant information from them. The app has some logic built in which checks whether this is going to be the risk level of this. For instance, is it going to store sensitive data, and if it is, then we need to perform additional reviews on the suppliers of that software or service, and that's all conducted within the app, which we'll cover in just shortly. And then that information is submitted to the software asset management committee, or whatever that function is within your business to review. May just be IT, maybe a bigger function depending on the size and complexity of your business. And then as a part of that, there'll normally be a information security due diligence check. There may be some additional questionnaires which we have templates for that may need to be filled in by suppliers, depending on if they store or process any sensitive PII or other information. There's also going to be should be some kind of financial due diligence by your business. Is that a financially sound business? What are the charges to the business going to be on a monthly basis, implementation costs, all that kind of thing. Once agreed, we'll then move on to the legal and contractual element, and then deployed. Now this, we have a full flow chart of how this process works, which you can download here. We've got the Visio diagram. We've also got full documentation on the app itself. If you have just very briefly run through, you can read through it yourself in your own time, but basically you can download and use all of this and just tailor it for your business. We've got some logic on how the risk rating works within the business. We've got all our app source, our data sources, which is all SharePoint lists, how to configure the tables in SharePoint lists. There's 3 different ones that are for this app, and then our flows, how they are configured, all the configuration you need, and any these supporting security assessment questionnaires are also available for you to download and tailor for your business. So let's move on to the app itself. Here's a quick demo of our new software or service request form app that we've developed in Power Apps. This is the home screen, so you can customize this to whatever you want, but as you can see here, we've got 2 buttons, one to start a new software request, the other one just links to the process flow diagram, just so people understand how the process works in detail. I'm just going to click on here, enable new software request form. Now, I've already completed this beforehand because I don't want to waste too much time just filling in fields, but we'll run through all of these fields. But first of all, over here you can see that it registers the date and time that this request was created, and over here it issues a reference number. This reference number increments by 1 every time a new form is completed. And over here, each mandatory field has a star next to it. This little question mark opens our documentation for that particular field. So if we just click on that, We can see here's all the information, the details for each one, name of the software service, blah, blah, blah. All the questions are filled out in here with all the options and how to select them. So we'll go back to our app. This example, we are requesting Office 365 deployment, a cloud-based software from Microsoft. It's going to replace our on-premise Office suite as cloud-based. It's going to be available globally. Approving manager is myself. This actually does a lookup into the 0AD, so all your users will be available to select. You can put a description of how you propose to use the software. Does it meet all your requirements? Yes, there's actually a link to how to gather requirements in our documentation for you to use. The number of licenses required, the currency. Notice that all of these are drop-down boxes. The reason being is it allows people to select and not make typos, so that when we're reporting, it's much easier to report on values that are spelled the same in each of these boxes. How often will be invoiced monthly, cost per invoice, estimated implementation cost. Now this is where we calculate this risk score over here. So once we go, yes, it's going to store sensitive data. We get provided a whole new set of questions. Will it process or store our financial data? We'll click no. Strategy, no. Use our branding and logo, no. Will it hold any of our clients' data? Now you can modify these. You might need some of them, you might not. We're going to go yes, it is, and then you can see suddenly it's got our clients' data in it. It's going to be a high risk score, and then we can just, it actually works out depending on what, some may be yes and no, and it just works out the value of these. And I'll show you the logic a bit later on. It's all documented in our documentation as well. And we'll work through all these mandatory questions. I've already filled these ones out. What's the priority? It's just normal. So now you can see we've completed all of these. We've put in some additional information. You can upload as many attachments as you like. For this example, we've uploaded our requirement specification for Office 365. And now you can see once all the mandatory fields are completed, our submit request form has enabled. It's calculated our risk, and then we just submit the request. So that goes off in the background. It writes this back to our SharePoint list, and it logs a ticket with our service desk with some follow-up information. So that'll auto close. It won't, because I've got this open within Power Apps. Right, so let's jump into the configuration side of the app. Once we've clicked submit in our app, a few emails are fired off. The first one I have here is the email that comes back to the requester just to tell them a little bit about that their ticket's been logged and some additional details about their ticket. The next email is the actual details that have been captured within the form within the app, and this is emailed out to either the help desk or some ticket logging system, where the board who will be reviewing the request can pick it up and then assess it from there. So that all that detail is in the email, including any attachments. And as a part of the app, I've actually configured two ways of sending the same information. This one that we're looking at now is using Power Automate Flow. And this one, the second one, which is direct, is actually sent using a send email function within Power Apps, and sending the same information, just a different way. I've included them both in the template. You can just comment out the one that you don't want to use. I suggest sticking with the Power Automate Flow method, because you can inject any approval flows within there easily. And all this is documented within our documentation that you'll have access to when you download that. So everything's configured. It shows you how to configure everything in there. Right, let's move on to the configuration of the Power App. So let's have a look at how our app's configured. So I've opened up the Power App within Power Apps Studio, and this is the first screen. So let's just have a look at the screens that are comprised within this app. We've got just 3 screens, so it's pretty straightforward. We've got this home screen, which is the work request home, where all the primary elements of the request are configured. Then we've just got the success screen. Basically, once you've submitted the form, shows a message, and then that auto closes. Then we've just got some settings where we use to make setting colors and etc. easier. Let's have a look at our data stores. So we've got a few data stores configured and plugins. So we've got our Office 365 plugin. This allows us to send emails from within our Power App. There's Office 365 users, allows us to pull properties of our users from our directory. These three are our SharePoint lists that we have created when the instructions are all included as we set up the template that you can download from Power Apps. Here it is, the app data source configuration, all the details on how to create these is detailed in our documentation. And then we have these collections, which are basically all the information we collect from our form stored in memory, along with any attachments that we can then write back to our SharePoint list and also email directly from our app. So those get refreshed once we submit the data from our form. So on this front page, we've just got our heading over here. That's just an image. We add media, add images in there, and upload your own logo in there. We've got our date and time. That's basically just a now bit of code in there that just pulls the date and time now. We've got our heading in here, our new software request form, and then an instructions button that just loads up the wiki page that has all our instruction manuals on. And then on the second part here, we've just got our name, good evening Barry. There's a little bit of code here you can write that depending on the time, it'll set the message, and then also how to list just the first name so it doesn't enter your full name in there. There's a bit of code you can copy in there, so that's all included. These two bars stay the same throughout the app. They standard. Then we just got another image here which I've just inserted just to show the user where they are. They should have already done these part of the process, and now they just collecting the data, which will then be sent off to the community for review. There's a more detailed flow over here. If they click on this button, you can see it launches our wiki page for that diagram. Just click here. This is available. These diagrams are available for you to download and edit when you download the app from powerappify.com. And this button here actually sets us off. So it basically launches a new instance of the software request form that will become unhidden when I click the button. This variable here is the global variable that is used to make some of the elements of the form invisible. So the ones that are the actual form itself is invisible on the screen. So this variable sets the visibility, and there's a property over here called visible, and that's set on each of these items. So that exclamation mark means when this property is true, the other properties are false, and if this one becomes false, then the other ones become true. So it allows us to toggle between them automatically. So that's the basic bit of text on the home screen. I'm going to click on the Start New Request, and then it will take us, it'll hide these elements on the front screen and unhide the form on the back. So on this screen we have our form, which is this element over here. So basically to add a new form, you go Insert, Forms, and you'd add a form that way. And the form is linked to a data source, and in this case the form's already configured to our new software request, which is basically the SharePoint list that we configured. Now when you download this is all configured for you, so when you fire up your app from our template, this will all be configured for you, and this is basically based on this SharePoint list here, which there's instructions when you install the app how to configure it. So this basically points back to the SharePoint list. The SharePoint list is called New Software Request, and it has all these fields. You can see here if you click on Edit Fields on the form, these are all the fields in the SharePoint list which map through to the form. Now what we've done, some are just the basic text fields, which means they don't have any drop-down elements. Here, where there's drop downs, what I've done is I've removed the text part and I've replaced it with a drop down form. Now, if you go to the section towards the end of the video, which is about how to update, which means add and remove one of these data cards. This is called a data card in the form here. So basically, we'll show you how to delete this and then add it again with all the formatting that I've created when I create it to look like it is here. So don't need to go into too much detail here. This is all basically done for you. Where it's pink here, these are all set in each of these mandatory fields. There's a fill property here, and basically it's saying if it's blank, all these mandatory fields that are pink here, if they are blank or the default option, then color them pink, and it won't enable this button until all the mandatory fields are complete. And then also if I add in any data in it, then it will go white, which means that it's been complete. So that's basically all you need to know on that. These are all defaults of all the options in the drop down list here are all in the documentation for the form. Over here it basically tells you each of them. It'll give you all of these are the options for each of the drop down lists, so that's all configured there and documented for you. Obviously you get all that documentation when you download the app template. The key one here is this security question. So over here, will it store or process any of our clients' data? If you drop that down and you select yes or I'm not sure, then it will give you a whole lot of other questions to fill in. And basically, these are covered in the next section of this video on how we determine this risk score over here. So I won't cover it now, it's just in the next portion of this video. And yeah, if you click on this, I think it's basically on the on change. So when that drop down list changes, it has a look and checks the values. It also sets some variables. So if it is set back to from yes to no, it will not store sensitive data. Basically resets, sets this var reset as true, and then if you click on each of these values here, there's a reset property, which is the variable. There we go, which sets the variable. So basically it'll just delete all the values in here if you want to change this, just so, because those are actually just hidden. All these are just hidden. So we don't want it to have values. Otherwise, when you send the email, it'll have values, even though you didn't want to have values. So that's why it resets it. And yeah, these aren't mandatory. You can see they're white. And then yeah, so once we've completed all of these pink ones, then this will become enabled, and then there's some code behind the submit request button, which we'll cover in a bit. Let's have a look at how we set our risk value. So as I showed you previously, when I select a value from this drop-down box, it will then unhide these associated information security questions below, and depending on what you select there, it will work out this risk rating here, this risk score here. Now, if I highlight this box, you'll see that high there is actually of the text of a variable called var data risk overall. And how we work that out is we have a timer function that we've added in here, where you can always insert input. Where is it? Timer over here. So we've just added a timer called timer 1 in this instance. And if I click on the timer and I'll have a look at some of the properties in the timer, on here I've set on timer end. Every time this timer, which will run for 200 milliseconds, every time you see it auto restart, so it'll keep going 200 milliseconds and then restart again 200 milliseconds, and every time that 200 milliseconds ends, it'll run this code here. And this code basically looks at the fields here. Now some of these fields are classified as medium risk, so these ones here, financial data. Will it hold our internal financial data? That's classified as a medium risk. or our strategy or our branding, if it holds that, it's medium risk. If it holds anything down here, this is considered high high risk, and we'll set this data risk high as high. And so anything that has client data, staff data, intellectual property, financial transactions, has admin rights to our systems, has any credit card data, then that's high risk data to us. And then so if any of those fields are yes, then it will set a medium, and any of these high ones are yes, then it will set a different variable for var data high risk to high. And then what it does at the end is it compares the var data risk medium and var data risk high. And if there's a medium and a high, then the overall is high. If there's an undefined and a high, then there's overall risk is high. If there's a medium and an undefined, then the overall risk is medium. And that's how it basically compares all the answers to all the questions, and then comes out with an overall risk, overall data risk, and that puts that variable that goes in this box over here, and it sets our variable in there, and then that determines what level of questionnaire we want to do. If it's undefined or low, then we don't have to do a security questionnaire, but if it's medium, we just do a very brief one, and if it's high, then we do a more in-depth questionnaire with the supplier. And all those templates, so security questionnaire templates, are also included in the link below from powerappify.com. So that is how the risk score works. The other key bit of logic that happens within our app is here on the submit request button. So this button, unless all the mandatory fields are completed, this will be disabled, but now we've filled out our form, it's enabled. And let's have a look at the code that sits behind this button. So if we click on it and then select the on select property, we can see everything that happens here. So first of all, it looks at our var data risk that we just covered. If it's high, then it will set another variable with just some text, because we use this text within our email. So it basically says, this is high risk. We recommend a full full assessment high risk information security questionnaires completed by the requester or software or service supplier. Same for medium or low. It just told that's the text that we'll include in our email. So that basically captures that in a variable, depending on what the security risk is. And then what we do is we collect all these items in our form, and we also capture it into a collection which stores it in memory. This allows us to use those variables within an email that we send from within the app. So a clear collect basically goes into a collection called software request, and it maps each of those. So the title, each of these are columns in my memory table, and then you can assign the values of your different fields to those columns, and that's stored in memory. You can also capture variables in there, and so that's in the collection. So if we go to view, collections, software request, so here's all the columns. So when I click on that button, it will add all the values in there into that collection, and then it'll remove it at the end of that, just to remove it from memory. Sorry, let me go back. And then what we do here is the next part captures the attachments and also adds those into memory. There's a little bit of code there, so you can copy that. And then this part here basically sends an email from within Power App. So there's actually two ways that we send emails with this app, and you can select which one is more suitable to you. So this little bit of code here uses the connector, the Outlook 365 connector, which allows me to send an email. Here I'm sending it to help@powerappify, but you can send it to anyone you want. And then over here I have the subject of the email. I'll just put some text, and then this is logged by the username who is logged into the app, to be ready by that's the date I selected on the form. And then I concat, use the concat function of the software request, and then I add all this text via HTML, and it's basically these are all the columns within our collection. So I'm going, here's some text. Yeah, after the text, insert this bit of data captured within our form, and then where these BRs are, that's a new line. This is bold. So if you just go back to in the HTML, if you don't know that, just copy what's in here, and you can work it out, and then just modify it to your needs. Right, and then it adds the attachments, uses this little bit of code to add the attachments from our collection into the email, and then it fires that email off. And then at the end here, it does a submit form. So it writes all those values back to our SharePoint list, and then it resets the form, gets rid of all the values in here to start again, and then it navigates to our success screen. And that's the end of it. So that is how our submit button works. So let's go ahead and actually click on our submit button. By the way, earlier we mentioned the reference number that increments by 1 every time. Here it is over here, and that's basically, if we just go back in here, that's a variable that's set in our code on the previous screen, and that just sets that number. So let's go back to the submit button. We're going to click it now. We've captured all our data. Submit request. Something's happening in the background. This is our submit screen, our success screen. You can see it auto closes here. Now that won't work now because we're actually running this from within the app. But if you run the app not from Power App Studio, but normally that will just close down the app automatically. And we can have a quick look at how that works. Let me just bring that. There's a success screen app. There's just this text auto close. It just uses this bit of scripting over here just to close it down. And again, we use a timer. So on here we've set our duration to 8,000 milliseconds, which is 8 seconds here, and then I think it's on timer end. We just run an exit, so it's quite easy. And that timer, again, that timer item is actually hidden, so the visible property over there, same as the other screen, is set to false, so you can't see it. And that's simply how that works. Right, so let's have a look at the emails that have been sent. Click on the submit button. I showed you in the code of submit button, there is one email sent via the HTML send email function within Power Apps itself, and I'll show you what that email looks like. But I've also set up a flow, Power Automate flow, so that when a new record is added to the SharePoint list, our SharePoint list over here that we've created, let me just sign in quickly. In our SharePoint list over here at the bottom, then that will, as it's added in, it will initiate a flow, and that will send an email. And this is the flow here, and this is fully documented in our instructions. So you can recreate this when you download the app. So here you can see when an item is created in SharePoint. Here's my SharePoint list. My list name is new software request. Then initially it will send this email to the requester just to say thanks for logging the request with us, a little bit more about the risk rating and also the process. And then it initializes a variable. This is to get the attachments out of our SharePoint list. Here we go, it gets the attachments. You can follow all this code when you create it, that's fine. Just applies all the attachments, runs through all the attachments, and then it sends this email, which is the same email as would have been sent by the HTML part of our submit button, but this is just done within Power. So there's actually two ways of doing the same thing, and you can choose just delete the one that you don't want to use. And I actually recommend using the Power Automate version because you can build in any approval flows within this flow, and that gives you a bit more flexibility on how to handle this. And there's other functionality that you can add in using the flow as well. So here's the code. You just select all the fields from your SharePoint list, and then that's it really. So let's hop over to my email inbox quickly. Here it is, and here's the email I forwarded. This is the email that was sent to the person who filled out the form and hit the submit button. This is I just showed you in the flow where this was done. Here's the information about that. This is I've labeled this flow and direct. The direct one is done from within Power App, so let's have a look at how that is formatted. So this is just done within HTML. Basically gives you all the same information, attaches the attachments as well to the email, and this is the email sent by Flow, which looks a bit neater and tidier. So that's basically it. These emails can be sent into your ticketing system. That's what we do, send it into our ticketing system, and then it's registered, and then the team that reviews it, keeps that updated, and also you can automatically send the supplier questionnaire to be filled out, or you can manually send it once it's been reviewed. That's up to you. I'm going to give you an example of how I can remove one of these fields from my form. They're called data cards. I'll remove one and then add it in, because as I mentioned before, these will normally be added and it won't be a drop-down box because it's just a text field, but I've added in a drop-down box, and I'll show you how I do this. So before we go ahead and remove any of these, you always need to check. Let's focus on this. Is this new or replacing software? So if I click on this drop-down box, you can see I've added it in here. So it's called, actually just do this one over here. So is this cloud-based software or service? So if I drop down there's a few options in that box. So if I click on that box itself, so drop underscore cloud software is the name of that drop down box. Now it has to be labeled exactly the same. So just I'm going to write that down on a piece of paper so I don't forget. There we go. DRP for drop down box cloud software. You need to do this for anyone that you might delete and then re-add, okay? Because that text, that label of that drop-down box is actually referenced in other places like the submit request button. So if you change it, it will error because it won't recognize it. So if I highlight this data card over here, I'm going to go this field over here. This opens the form, all the fields that are in the form. We're going to go, is this a cloud-based software? So we're going to go service type. Yeah, this is what it's called in our SharePoint list, service type. So if I go, let me just show you. Service type, there we go, is it cloud-based? So that's referencing there. So I'm going to remove that service type, remove it. There we go, it's gone. And then I'm going to close that down. I'm going to open it up again. I'm going to add it. I'm going to search for service type, click OK, add. There we go, it's going to add it into my form. And then you can see, because I've deleted it, it's got a red mark there because this will be different. You can see the layout's different, so each of these have been customized. You can see to make it look like this. This is what it'll look like if you just added when I first added the form with all the fields. So this is what it was formatted like. Now I want to move that up a bit to where it was. So I'm going to go back in here all the way at the bottom. This is it over here. Oops, excuse that. I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to move it up if I can grab it. Move it up. I think it was third from the top. Service type. There we go. Put it in there. Let's go and find it in the list. There it is. So what are we going to do next? We are going to, let's just bring this back. Just want to get the formatting right. We want to put it at the end. We want to cloud-based software. There we go, and we want to set it to 11, which is our default text. I'm going to set it to white. Right, and then we break this one away afterwards, so we move this back. Actually, this was a drop-down list, right? And this is just a normal text field. So what we want to do is we want to delete that. So we just highlight it there, and then we delete it. It's not listening. I'll have to unlock it first. Sorry, so just right-click on it, unlock, and then I can cut it out. Right, there we go. It's gone. So now what I need to do is I need to insert, input, drop-down box. Oh, sorry, actually, I didn't do it right. You have to make sure that it's actually highlighted when you insert it. So input, drop-down box. There we go. I'm just going to drag it to where it's meant to be. And you just use the coordinates, right, to get it exactly. So if I click on this one over here, I can see position is 480.10, so I want to do the same on here. Position 480.10, and then I also want to get the other one, which is 590.30 for the size. So let's go here. 590.30. Right, there's my size. I just want to drag this down a bit, line it up. I want to copy these stars, so I'm just going to go Control C, highlight this one, Control V. I'm going to put it over there, and then I'm going to get my question mark as well. Control C, highlight the other one, Control V in there. It's just sometimes easier also to get the coordinates over here. So let's get the position is 109.510. So we'll do here 109.510. There we go, that'll line that up. And then in here we're going to put our items. Now you would have just copied down what the previous ones were, and actually you can get it from here. So what all the drop downs, this is a cloud-based software service. Here's all the options, right, that we need to fill in. Control C, go back. Items, so open brackets, close brackets. We want to select the best option, which is on all of them. And then we're going to put in our values over here. Go back. So lucky I've documented all of this so you can recreate it as and when you need to. And you have access to all this documentation when you download the app. Not sure. I'll put that in. Right, so we have that all in. We just want to make sure that it's back to 11, not 13. Okay, so we've got all our options in there. We want to select, if we've got to change to this link, we can just, because we copied it from the one above, we want to reference it different. We want to, we can copy and update that link. I won't do that now, but that's up to you. And then we just want to get the color right. So we go into the advanced properties, and I think it is chevron background. Is it chevron background X? Yeah, and then I'm going to go 10 on my settings screen. I've got 10 purple dot color. That just helps me put that value in, and there we have it, right? And there was also the color selector. So I think it was fill. We go to fill. There we go. If is blank, let's copy from one that's already a drop-down menu because the text fields are a little bit different. So fill, yeah. So copy that. Go back here to the fill item. fill. I'm just going to replace that with this. Right, now we haven't, you can see that red mark says we haven't actually renamed this, and we need to rename it before we do anything else. So we go down to the highlighted one. Where is it? Drop down to, so what did we rename it? DRP underscore cloud software. That was the exact name of the one we deleted. Okay, I think that should be right. Okay, now we're going to go back to the fill part. So we want to go if drop cloud software. If drop, we don't want service type, we want if drop cloud software. There we go. Value is select the best option. If it's on the default of select the best option, then make it light pink, otherwise make it white. Okay, and then finally we want to just fix these. So we want to update the SharePoint list form with that new drop underscore cloud software dot selected text dot value. That fixes that part, and then we're just going to delete this. This is not necessary. We can just remove that. There we go. And this should have fixed. I'm not 100% sure why that hasn't fixed itself. Where are we? So this is just a note. The display mode, remember I told you when it's not enabled? This is the display mode. The text behind it is basically saying that if the value of it is this, then it'll be disabled. So basically if it's not filled in, then it's disabled, and if it is, then it will eventually enable. But we are more interested in the on select, where we think the issue is. So drop service type, drop cloud software isn't recognized. Why isn't that recognized? That should be recognized. Let's just try again. Oh, is it because I put a capital D? It's because I put a capital D. Don't make that mistake. Should be a small d, right? I originally had a small d. So it is case sensitive. Okay, so it should have been small d. You can see I've had to come in here and update it now. Actually, let's revert that back to small d. Let's go off, go back into here and rename that with the small d like it should have been. Update, and that should have fixed it. There we go. Okay, so that's how you add and remove fields within the form. For our new software service request form, hopefully that all made sense to you. Now, just remember, you don't have to go and configure this all yourself. I've spent hours and hours doing it for you. All you have to do is go over to Power Appify, link in the description below, powerappify.com, download the template, install it as per the instructions that we have over here, full instructions, how to install your Power App. You get all of this, tells you exactly what you need to do, and you can get up and running with this app and then just customize it to suit your business. We'd really appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up on this video, and even better if you can subscribe to our channel. You'll keep up to date with any new releases we have. We have a few more apps coming out in this series, and where you can just download them, import them into your business, and customize and start using straight away. Thanks for watching, and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers.